Reinvention is one of the hallmarks of a long-term career as an artist. The ability and the desire, the capacity, to take something that used to work a certain way during a certain season and do something new, something different with that same material, with that same pattern, with those same skills. One of the things I've admired about Christa Wells' career is her ability and her capacity to not just reinvent as a writer, a songwriter, a podcaster, as a guide, but to do so in a way that paves the way and sets an example for other artists to do the same. I really enjoyed my conversation with her sitting down in Nashville. I think you will too. Check it out. How long have you been doing your podcast?
I started it in the winter, I'm not sure, maybe February, but I dropped off. I did like 4 episodes and then I couldn't keep up because of some other things I was dealing with.
Yeah.
So I've just started up again.
Was it like an intentional thing, like I'm going to do a podcast, or was it like, let's see what happens here? Like,
I've wanted to do a podcast for about a year, or I've thought about it, maybe for 2 years, and I couldn't quite get to the point where it was a full-on want to. It was kind of like I want to.
Oh, that's good.
And I really do genuinely love conversations.
Yes.
And so I finally just decided this year was my take action year in some ways. So I was
in general, or specifically with that?
In general.
Okay.
I decided enough talk. Do it.
Enough talk. Time to record the talk.
Yeah, to record the talk.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Because you've been. Actually, let's do this. We're in Nashville. Mm-hmm. You're not from Nashville.
I'm not from Nashville.
Where are you from?
I'm an Army brat originally.
Yeah.
So I'm from a lot of places.
Kind of all over the
California
place.
once.
Yeah.
A lot in the South, East Coast a little bit, and outside of Chicago and then West Germany for 4 years.
Where in West Germany?
Kaiserslautern and
Been there.
Karlsruhe.
I've been to Kaiserslautern.
Yeah. They're not too far from one another, but I lived there for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. It's a trip.
Yeah.
The military life is like, I mean, if
It's
you're
thing.
in it as a kid, maybe you don't necessarily see it, but most of the brats that I know, they felt it. Like, it's not like missionary kids are a little bit different.
Yes.
Like, or, kids whose parents travel for work, like, it feels more normalized. There's something about like the military brat life that like you feel it differently.
Yes.
Emotionally.
I think it felt like its own bubble in a way. I felt that we were our own like subculture for sure.
Yeah.
And when my dad retired from the military, I was in 11th grade, and I did not like the idea of my dad wearing regular clothes,
Really?
going to an office and not coming home and polishing his boots. Like, it almost felt like, I remember the word civilian, feeling like, now we're just civilians. I think in a way it felt special.
Yes.
Like my dad took a lot of pride. My mom took a lot of pride in his work and in that, so it's a thing.
It is, that's part of what I mean. It is a very particular culture.
Yes.
And there's, this is probably an overstatement. There's a bit of a uniformity to it that like, regardless of it's like the honor and the pride that comes with being in the military. Again, it's different from like, my dad worked for Chevron. We were here, and here.
Yeah.
Or like my parents were missionaries. There's the kind of unique experience to like, I've lived all over the world, had to because of the importance of and the honor of the job. There's a very particular culture.
Yeah. There were some things I loved about it. And then it just gets harder as you're getting older as a kid.
Do you have a place as a child you remember feeling like home? Like that was like, this was home and it sucks we left.
I think that I only really felt that way about leaving Germany. And I think it might be the age, because I was going into high school and it just felt like, no. This feels great. Let's just keep staying here. Also, I think a beautiful thing about that particular experience is that it was in a way like all the beautiful things of small town life without the baggage of small town life, because we had this small, relatively safe, close-knit community with a good bit of diversity and things felt simple. There weren't a lot of church. There was one church, there was one school. Everybody's in the same boat. However, you didn't grow up together. So you don't know each other's business and family. Like a small town might have some of that gossipy thing. I didn't experience it that way. So it just felt kind of dreamy. Like we kids felt so safe there.
What does that do for your experience of home as an adult? Like when I say the word home, is there a geography to it? Is there what does it mean for you to be home? What is home for you now?
I don't really, the word home doesn't mean a lot to me, honestly. Yeah. I feel at home with myself. I feel at home with anybody I love a lot. When we did live in Raleigh, North Carolina for quite a long time. And I remember towards the end of living there, having this moment with my former husband where he talked about planting a tree in the backyard and how it would mean so much to our grandchildren one day, our great grandchildren. And something in me just really bucked up. I was like, wait, you're acting like we're going to live in this house forever. And he's like, well, do you want to live somewhere else? And I'm like, well, I don't know, but I don't want to be locked in. Like maybe I do. I don't want to just decide right now that we're staying here for our whole life. And that kind of, so there is something in me, and it could just be wiring. It might not be about the Army life, because every kid growing up in the Army, feels differently about permanency. But I don't like the idea of, like, I'm renting a house right now, and every once in a while a friend will say, oh, I hope you get to buy a house soon. And I'm like, why? I don't really want to buy a house.
Well, that was the next question, is like, in terms of having a sense of like arrival, do you still live there where you're like, I don't know what's coming next and I don't want to make decisions about it?
I can see myself staying in Nashville, or as a home base. My dream life would be a home base, but then I'm like writing on balconies all around the world.
Writing on balconies specifically.
I just like balconies and porches a whole lot. So if there could be water,
which are all transitionary spaces.
Oh, yes.
Gotcha.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that.
I gotcha.
Okay, you're like psychoanalyzing me. I can see it.
I'll stop.
It's very interesting.
But you've been in Nashville for how long now?
5 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You love it?
I really love living here right now. I love the community I'm experiencing. I lived here in my early 20s and hated it. Yeah. Like hated its guts. I felt like it was so... but, you and I were talking briefly, or you mentioned projecting, what you project onto the world. And I was terribly insecure. And so as a musician, of course, I hated Nashville, because it just felt like
it exacerbated
doing
all
the same
those
thing I'm doing, and it feels terrible. But now I came back, at a whole different season of my life where I'm not needing anything from the industry. Means nothing to me. I live here. I do music. I do not ever go down a music row. I don't consider myself really a part of that world, even though I have a ton of friends in that community. I'm welcome in a lot of spaces, but I don't know. I've just found my own, it changes everything when you come into any kind of relationship or context without neediness.
Yes.
As a whole person, I know who I am. I forged my life in North Carolina, removed from all of the things that Nashville can offer.
Yes.
So now I just really appreciate the community here that I find very supportive in at least in my indie sphere.
Yeah. Having started music, having started like a career in the arts, a while ago, you're in a sort of like a different phase, but you're in a more developed phase. There's more happening. Do you feel like you're up to the same thing? Does it feel like right now this is like a new season and you're doing new things and like reinvention, or is this like another phase or another extension of the same work? Is this one long continuous thing that's happening through you, or do you feel like you've had to make some clean breaks in terms of like how you express and who you are as an artist?
It feels like an evolution of the same thing, but with seasons of rapid growth within myself that has then altered what and how I express.
Yeah.
So it's not been outward decisions like to pivot. It's just been, I am different.
Oh, good.
And so what comes out is different. I I have said a few times or many times, oh, I'm a totally different person than I was a few years ago. And one of my close girlfriends, she's like, no, you're just more of you.
That's good.
And I like that.
Yeah.
I also, though, like the idea of I'm less of things that weren't me. You know, just a shedding of things that I thought were me, but they were like jackets I'd been piling on through the years.
How much of that process for you in terms of evolution, change, growth, do you feel responsible to share publicly? Like there's that line between, I don't know if there's a line between, sometimes a line, sometimes just a tension between like public artistic expression and leadership.
Yes.
Do you feel like a leader? Do you feel a responsibility to take people somewhere? Because everyone is one of the gifts theoretically, or possibly, I'll say like not theoretically, one of the possible gifts of good artwork is that it grants people permissions and languages. You believe someone else's words more than you believe your own inner dialogue. There's a way in which like you can recognize that as an expression of leadership.
Right.
Do you think of that in terms of leadership? Like, what's that like, and how responsible do you feel to take people particular directions?
That's such a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that, but it's interesting because I do feel more. I feel connected to the word leader, but I didn't. I think I resisted that and a few other words for decades. And I think that has a lot to do with fear of, responsibility
Yes.
and low self-worth and different things. But I've recognized over the last several years that quietly there are a lot of people who have started to follow the work I do or the things I say. Who, how do I say this? Like, I've been baffled by why they're following me. They seem to be people who are leaders themselves. So I've been curious why they're interested.
Yeah.
And so I've been exploring that more consciously this year, actually, and have enrolled myself in some situations where I can learn from other leaders and learn how to step into that more, because like I said, I've really resisted it. But now I really enjoy the space that I have that's been given to me and that I've created, where I feel like part of my leadership and yours is a subversiveness.
Yeah.
It's quietly inviting people who inhabit the spaces we've come from, and to ask questions that that might feel uncomfortable, and foreign. And if that's leadership, like asking good questions, if that's part of leadership, I'm all in for that. I'm not in for a brand of leadership and maybe that's why I resisted it, because there were connotations that I didn't want to embrace.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell anybody I don't want to tell people what to do, because I don't like to be told what to do. I don't want to tell people what to think, because I don't like to be told what to think.
Right.
But I do love good questions.
Yeah. That's part of the heart, I think, behind, I'm guessing when I say this, you are helping facilitate like writing retreats. We ran into each other at the conference. Like you're doing works. Some of the works you're doing now are more in the direction of help and helpfulness.
Yes.
Does that come from like running into artists and who have questions? Is that a response to like, because sometimes we make the work that we want to see in the world because it's in us. Sometimes we hear enough stuff around us and like, I can make something for that.
Right.
So you a bunch of what you're doing now you're leading retreats for other people. You're putting conferences on to address broader questions like grief.
Right.
Is that in response to what you see in the world around you? Is that what's going on in you? Like, where's that stuff coming from?
I think it used to be more of the response to what people were asking for. You know, you're an artist, you're making music, so people ask you how to make music. You know, it definitely started there years ago before my own personal crisis began. But I think now it's definitely a matter of me speaking all the things that I needed to hear along my road, the things that brought me healing, the things that brought me to a new level of awareness or growth. Those are the things I'm interested in saying. And I think that's how we all work as artists. The things we tend to emphasize in our songs or books are often the things that the messages that have been lost, that we needed.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing. That's the gift of our suffering, right? Is that it becomes, now, you know, what was it that brought me out of death and into life? That's what I want to make more of in the world, or make more accessible.
Yes.
And you know, in the world that I come from, there was a lot that was never on the table at the back of the sanctuary. There was a lot that was left off of that table because it wasn't deemed safe. And so I'm a big fan of going to unsafe places now, because that's where growth happens.
Are there things you miss about, we talked about you feeling like being a pretty different person now, and therefore your art there's more happening. I mean, I like the way your friend said, it's like, you're not necessarily a different person entirely. There's just more of you and maybe some less. So speaking specifically about like like there's less of certain elements, are there things that you miss about like early life art, musicianship, touring? Are there things that you miss about that season, that early on season? Is there a, what's the word I'm looking for? Is there a nostalgia there for you, or is it like, that's a season and it's over and I'm here and I'm happy?
Yeah. I don't tend to be a very nostalgic person anymore. And my early adulthood, like my career or my work, my official work in the world with music and art started rather late. I had dreams that I intended to do when I was a teenager and in college. And then, you know, I instead chose to build a family and not be on the road, not do music too much. So I didn't have that early experience even in terms of my early adult years to look back and be nostalgic about, because it's all been relatively new for me, taking it out into the world. But if I ever get nostalgic for anything, it's my childhood, which was, when it comes to creative expression and play, it was like right full of, what's the word? Like it was just full of it. It was magical. But I live that way now. So I feel like I'm very, very connected to my inner child and live. Yeah. So the years that I was between, I'd say 20 and 40, there's nothing I'm really nostalgic about during that time. I appreciate a lot of the experiences. I had great love. I had healthy kids. I had so much that I enjoyed. Yeah. But I haven't lost anything.
That's good. Talk about your experience of the internet, being online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Are these happy places for you? Are they healthy places for you? Are they tools? Like, talk about you living online. Yeah. Like, your relationships. We'll just start there. Like, is that a happy, healthy place for you, or is it kind of a necessary have to do? Like, what's it like for you to?
That's good. That's a good thing to talk about. It is. It's changed in different seasons, different moments. When I first entered, I kind of hated it because I was like, I don't even know who I'm talking to. You know, like who's even going to read this?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so it took a long time to ease into it. And I really enjoy when I'm actually connecting with people. Like I host workshops on Zoom. Love it.
Yes.
Love it. I feel like it's real, genuine connection. I love conversations that can emerge in people I've met, even through, you know, people who respond to an Instagram post or poem or whatever.
Yeah.
Real stuff happens there. And people, especially on the artist and side recently, there are just this small pocket of people who regularly, you know, write responses or share the responses to the writing prompts or message me about them. And I love these people. Like I have not met them in real life. There's an older gentleman who lives in Ireland named Robert Turner, and I love Robert. Robert, if you're listening, I can't wait to come visit you someday. So I love those things that are real, that happen there. And I really, really am a sensitive person who loves solitude. And so I've become, the healthier I have become as an individual, the more boundaried I'm becoming with social media.
What's that? Like, give me an example of a boundary.
Well, just very recently, I recognized that just like with chocolate in the house, if it's here, I will overconsume it. So if I'm not to the point of health where I have like these, I don't know, this willpower, this ability to draw lines externally, like, or internally with that. So with Instagram, I realized I needed to delete it from my phone and reinstall it when I need it. So I delete it now from somewhere between 8 at night and 10 at night.
You just delete the app.
I delete the app. And it makes me instantly feel clearer knowing that it's not even on my phone. So when I climb in bed and I have my phone plugged in there for the alarm, I can't do one more scroll. I can't do one more check. It's just not on there anymore.
Yeah. And if it was
there, I probably would open it up one more time. And when it's on my phone, I wake up and I open it up. Yeah. And I don't like the way it feels. It messes with, even if it's not a conscious disturbance, if nothing, you know, even if only good things have happened, people have sent messages, lovely messages or something, it still alters my brain in some way to open it up first thing. And I don't want to start the day that way. So I don't reinstall it now until 9:30 usually. And that's only if I'm about to post a writing prompt on Artistan generally. Yeah. And then I do what I need to do on there, and then I delete it again until I'm ready to post, you know, something.
Do you keep, along with that, a somewhat regular schedule in order to achieve? In other words, you have several things happening, and kids, and so do you map out your weeks, your months? Like, how do you, it's not necessarily balance. I don't really buy the idea of balance, but how do you space out your work? Do you have times, like you're up at 4, you're up at 6, and you, like, what's it look like for you to like map out your actual work?
I map things out weekly on a spreadsheet that's by the 30-minute intervals, and then I allow myself to rearrange it as needed. So I do have a plan, but I also roll with it. Yeah. So I see myself as a river, and I'm like, 1 week does no 2 weeks look alike. I like that. Yes. So I'm very disciplined, pretty disciplined about waking up at 6 or 7. I'm very, very committed to meditation and exercise first thing. And then I get into my work. Yeah. You know, and I have a schedule, but if I really am not feeling like editing a podcast one day, I'll swap it around. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
What will it mean? Well, let's do 2 things. How are you measuring success now? Because, you know, we begin our careers in any field with a particular understanding that usually gets handed to us by someone else. This is what will look like for you to win. That changes. Yeah. Like,
thank God.
Thank God. Also, you know, invariably, like, it always changes. Right. Like, everyone's wrong about that when you start. Yes. Like, everyone is wrong about that when you start. What does it look like for you now? Like, how are you measuring success?
There are 4 things that matter to me most, I've realized. Connection, like real connection with people and with myself. Creativity, freedom, and growth. So I have these 4 things in front of me, and I'm like, these are my core values. Freedom, growth, creativity, and connection. If I am living into all of those, that's it.
And those are internal. That's like your experience of it.
Right. So externally, I have a lot of enthusiasm towards my work right now. So I feel like in a very tangible, visible way, I feel successful in a day if I have honored my commitments to myself. If I said I was going to do these things and I did those things, or I renegotiated with myself and said, you're going to write a song instead, I did that. Yeah. That's really about it. I don't have any attachment to, let me think if this is true. I have an attachment to, I love freedom. Like I said, that's one of my 4 things. So one of the things that facilitates freedom for me is having enough money to not be stressed about money.
Yeah.
So a measure of my success is having enough money that I feel free. That number can change with the season and the number of kids I'm taking care of. I used to really crave acknowledgement and credibility, and it's kind of fallen away, to be honest.
Does that come with disappointment, or does it just come with maturity and you don't need it anymore?
I think I just don't see myself so separate from anything or anybody or life itself anymore. I think my whole first few decades, I saw, they talk about true self and small self or whatever, and I just saw myself as separate and needing so much in order to be whole and real. And now I see myself as, I love this image, which I just quoted from Alan Watts recently, that you did not come into this world, you came out of it like a wave comes out of the ocean. And so I see myself as a wave in the ocean, taking my turn, rising up and using what is in me to be a part of the life of the world. So I don't have any other measures of success right now. As long as I think I am wholly committed to being on my path. I'm committed to the path. So if I'm on my path any given moment of the day, that feels like success to me. That feels good. That feels right. It feels aligned, and I can sleep at night.
Yeah.
If I make money or get attention for doing something that I felt unaligned with, that is not success. And I've recently said no to a couple of things that no longer felt in alignment for me, even though they probably would have contributed to outer success and opportunity and even money.
The bottom line type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But during this season, at least for right now, that's not what I can live with.
That's really good. Yeah, there's the success as a moving target idea, and oftentimes the it's not cheap, it's just really broad answer to the question, how do you measure success? Very few folks will be like, well, I would like to make $150,000 every year for the next 6 years. Very few, although a lot of us mean that. So the thing that we often go to is that success will mean faithfulness. It's just, it would be like a really, really short, cheap way to say what you just said. Yeah. But the specifics matter. Because it's the thing to which you're faithful. Right. That actually, that's the thing that matters. Your faithfulness, and this is fascinating to me, that your faithfulness has a qualitative element to it. To what you're faithful changes the nature of your faithfulness. So if you're faithful to a particular process, that's fine. But if you're faithful to your own experience of the thing, that's a very different kind of faithfulness.
And it's interesting too, like you said, it shifts so much through the years. And a few years ago, my answer would have been to some ears indiscernible from what I just said. but it would have been very different on the inside. I would have said early on, oh, I don't care. I don't have any real goals, whatever. And that was me hiding from truth.
Yes.
That I did really want to be acknowledged. I wanted, I've been a person who in many instances has been a part of someone else achieving outer success. I've written songs or been there for them, with them, held the door open.
Yeah.
And wanted to not care about that.
Yes.
And felt sadness that my life is going by and I'm not. But I think what was going on is, at the time, I thought what I wanted. See, they say anything that you want, it's not that thing, it's what you believe it will give you, the emotion, the feeling. Mm-hmm. And I thought, if I had that acknowledgement, if I had that income, then I would feel joy, then I would feel good about myself. Yeah. Mainly that. Then I would love myself.
Yes.
In the last few years, it's happened in reverse. I learned to love myself. And so now when I say I don't really need those things, I welcome money for sure. Yeah. I love to travel. I love to have cushion. But that's not where I get the self-love anymore,
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what I was after all along. So that's like, ooh, that's super fun. And it matters to me, but it's not the essence.
I love that.
So
thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on this episode of the At Sea podcast. If you'd like to follow up with Christa Wells and her work, you can join her at christawellsmusic.com. And if you'd like to be one of the folks who continues to help make this podcast happen, you can jump to patreon.com/Justin McRoberts and join the team. We'd love to have you. Until next time.